going to be my model for our play number 3, the Modern Classic. He is a puppy, and this is like his first full all-over haircut, so we're going to just work with him and do what he's comfortable with, but I'm thinking we're going to do a 2 on the body and a 0 on the legs. Before I get started with my clipper work, I'm going to check my book to see what areas of the body that we're clippering. The Modern Classic is a little bit different than some of the other styles because we're going to leave a crest. So when I start my clipper work, I'm going to start around the area of the withers. On my back leg, I'm gonna do the legs about 2 lengths longer than the rest of the body, but I want to clipper off the bulk on the thighs as well as the back of the back leg. We're gonna do some angulation. So I'm gonna move the tail to the side and clipper everything on the back of the back leg short. So the area where his leg bends, this will be my shortest point. We can take this a little bit shorter by going in reverse in this area, but it's his first haircut and his skin is really pink. So I don't want to go too short and expose the skin. So I'm just going to clipper off the thigh. And once I clipper the belly, it'll be a little bit more clear, my reference point for the lines on this back leg. I'm also gonna leave a tuck-up, which means I'm clippering his whole flank, except instead of wrapping around underneath the body, below the last rib, this hair I'm just clippering straight down, and then I'm gonna leave myself a little curtain to make this line on the front of the back leg. So my reference point for how low I wanna clipper on the thigh is gonna be this point where the leg bends in the back. That's my shortest point. I'm going to do a line from the shortest point of my rear angulation to the area of the tuck up. And this is going to be where I want to set that pattern. And the pattern continues to this front leg. So our next star is going to be from the tuck up area to this armpit. And I want to clipper straight off the widest part of this dog's shoulder and start to set the parallel lines of my front leg. And the last star of my pattern placement is going to be the front of the front leg, where you transition from the shoulder into the front of the leg. So point A, B, C, and D. And there's your pattern. Now I'm just going to continue clippering. I'm clippering all the way to the bulb on the back of the ear. But above that, I'm going to leave so that I have a little bit of a crest to give us a transition from our neck into our top line. And we'll talk more about that later. And I'm going to repeat my clipper work on the other side. And I'm avoiding the armpit, but I'm clippering everything around that area. I don't want to leave a hole here, but I do want to make sure that I'm not leaving excess hair that's just going to get matted or tangled. When I'm setting my tail, I want to think about what is the most flattering look for the dog. What do we like in canine anatomy? What is proper? And what we always want to strive for on this type of haircut is going to be a level top line. So when I'm clippering the tail, I want to go straight off of the dog's back. I don't want to follow down and take off this hair. If I took this hair off, doesn't mean I can't trim it, but if I shave this off with a clipper, it's gonna set the dog's tail underneath him, and it's gonna make him look like he has to go potty. So that's why we want a level top line from the withers to the tail, and we also just wanna give the dog the most flattering look possible. When I'm clippering around the head, I wanna make sure I go all the way up to the jawline, so where the chin and neck meet, I want to take my clippers all the way up to that spot. If he was a longer length, like a 1 or a 0, anything longer than that, I would take a shorter length on the neck, chest, belly, and rear, because those are high friction areas that tend to get matted. It also helps the dog's structure. It makes them look like they have better posture in the front, gives them a more flashy rear, and it helps their underline hit their elbow, which those are all things that are corrective grooming techniques that make the dog look like their breed standard. After I have my rough pass pattern set on the body, I'm going to move on to the longer clippered areas of the legs and the crest. I'm going to use a 0 guard comb. A good rule of thumb is to use 2 lengths longer than the length on the body, but that's something you can play with if you like the legs a lot longer, if you like them just a little longer. It's totally personal preference. I'm just gonna start with his back legs because he's never had clippers on his front legs before, and I want him to get comfortable with the sensation and noise back here. This is a little bit more scary for them, so that's why I'm starting in the rear. And I'm just gonna clipper slowly and let the clipper do its job. The clipper cuts hair by passing the blade back and forth. The cutter goes like this. So if you move too quickly with your clippers, you're not gonna get all that hair that you need cut. So I wanna move slowly with my clippers and just let the clipper do their job. And I also wanna make sure that I'm clippering all the way down to the foot. And I'm gonna clipper the foot. We don't need to leave a bunch of extra hair on the foot that we're gonna have to scissor later. And I try to stretch the dog's leg out by pushing on this tendon back here so that I can get long, even strokes with my clipper. Doing long, even strokes is another way to help prevent making any clipper lines or harsh lines that you'll have to go over later with your thinning shears. You want to make sure you get the inside of the leg as well. Sometimes I just pick up this front leg to kind of distract them or make them stand on the back leg. But anytime I lift, I'm being gentle, and I'm also helping them put the leg back down. I'm not just dropping it, or if I lift his front legs, I don't just drop his legs and slam him on the table. You're a good boy. You're very good. Right now, he's getting an introduction to the grooming process, and I want to just try to make this an overwhelmingly positive experience for him. This is a time that he's learning a lot, and I don't want him to learn to get scared. I want to set him up to be a great client for me for the next 10 to 15 years. And so taking a little bit of extra time when they're puppies, just to get them used to it, is going to help you a lot in the long run of your career working with this dog. For his front leg, I want to gently lift, and I'm going to get this front of the front leg, all in one continuous swipe. In areas where it transitions from the body into the leg. If you don't have a leg in a stretch position, sometimes you can get really harsh divots where the clipper goes from this angle to this angle in the areas where you move from body into leg. So that's why I always want to stretch the leg out when I'm clippering, just because I don't want to give myself extra work. I'm holding his elbow joint instead of grabbing his foot or his leg. Gives me a little bit more control. And usually dogs are more comfortable with having this area of their leg touched than the bottom. And again, I want to just try to do as long and even of clipper strokes as I can. And I'm clippering all the way down over the foot. Distraction is a great tool to use on puppies, so make weird noises. Obviously, pay attention to what other groomers in your salon are doing. Don't make weird noises if they're working on the face or in an area that the dog can be startled, but distraction is a great way to just redirect the puppy's attention when they're starting to get too interested or maybe a little upset about what you're doing. I'm gonna move this grooming loop so that I can now clipper the crest area. And I'm gonna use the same length as I did on the legs. And this is just gonna help me transition the head into the body. I don't want my eye to be drawn to the crest area and for it to be really apparent that it's longer. I just want it to be slightly longer, not noticeable to the pet parent, but it gives the neck the appearance of being a little bit stronger. It doesn't make the dog look scrawny, and it gives you a nice transition from the top of the head, down the neck, into the top line. Before I move on to my scissor work, I'm going to do my final pass with clipper work on the body. So I'm just going to do a quick once over. I've combed the hair up, and now I'm just going to do a final pass to get a nice finish. Now I'm ready to finish the haircut on the body with scissors. When you use a longer clip comb on the legs of a dog, you're going to want to go over it with your thinning shears or straights or curves just to give a nice clean finish and make sure that there aren't any slightly longer pieces that are sticking out. So what I do is I fluff up the hair, take my thinning shears, and just trim off any edges that stick out past the length that I've set with my clippers. Remember that you're not resetting the length on the leg. All that you're doing is making sure that there are no uneven spots or long hairs that are sticking out. Next, I'm going to move to the tuck-up area. And what I want for this is just a slight half moon shape from directly below the last rib into the front of the back leg. It's just a little fringe of hair that hangs from this flap in the tuck-up. And what you can do is use your curved shears and use the curve in your shears to set that shape for you. The purpose of leaving this tuck up here is to move the line on the front of the back leg forward. This is an illusion. It's camouflaging the fact that this dog has a slightly longer torso and isn't quite a square. What we look for in many dogs and many breed standards is a square body, and giving the illusion of a smaller space in between the front and the back legs makes the dog appear more square. And I'm just gonna repeat the process on the front leg. When I look at the dog from the front, I can see that I want a parallel line from the widest part of the shoulder. So these hairs are sticking out past my parallel line, and I can trim those with my thinning shears. And when I'm scissoring, I'm trying to make sure that I'm moving my arm and my body and not moving my wrist or my shears. If you need to pick up the dog's leg in order to get a good angle, just make sure you memorize the shape with the dog's foot and leg in a natural position. Pick it up, do a bit of scissoring, and then put it down and check again. The reason that you want to do this is because when dogs are bearing weight on their legs and feet, they're a different shape than when they're not bearing weight. So you want to make sure that the dog's leg is bearing weight when you're looking and setting your shape. The puppy is distracted right now, so this is a great opportunity for me to do work that might be sensitive. Use those moments that the dog is distracted to get work done. After I've cleaned up my clipper lines, I can move on to the feet. I've already shaved his paw pads and started to set my bevel for my round foot. So you can see I've already started to get a little lift here, but when I start my foot, I want to pick it up, make sure that there's nothing hanging over the pad from underneath. And then you can see the lift on the back of the foot. Now I'm going to move to the front of the foot. I set the back and the front first. So I'm going to go from a 45-degree angle and scoop underneath the front toes. And I'm cutting in a straight line straight across. Then I'm going to go to the outside of the foot and just connect those two lines. And I don't let the shape of my curve determine the shape of the foot because I don't want to make my foot too wide or too narrow. I generally cut the foot straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line, and then I take the edges off. I'm going to do a straight line back to connect my side to the back and the front. And then you can see we've already got a cute round foot, and I haven't trimmed the top part yet, but the bottom part, cute, round, lifted off the ground. It's going to be neat. And I want to check from all angles. So I'm going to go just double check the inside of the foot. And then after I'm finished setting my shape, I want to just fluff up. Remember, I've already trimmed the top of the foot with a guard comb. So really, I'm just targeting this ledge right here. And I'm going to take my thinners and just soften that edge. And then you'll have a cute round foot. Same process on the front. Step one is trimming everything that hangs down over the pad. Step 2 is trimming straight across the front of the foot at that 45-degree angle, and then connecting the back to the front. I always leave a little extra right here so that I don't have a foot that's shaped like a triangle when I'm going for a round foot. Now I'm gonna go on the inside and I'm just connecting the back. Now I'm just gonna round the top. Because I don't trust him to hold his foot still, I'm gonna memorize. I see it's really fluffy right here, so I'm memorizing that, and then I'm gonna lift the foot and use my thinning shears to round that ledge. Just focusing on that area that I saw earlier. And I don't know if you guys notice or if this is gonna come across in the edit, but you can see how much calmer the dog is. That's one of the reasons that I have not used a groomer's helper. He's a really young dog. This is his first time getting a full all over haircut, and he doesn't need to be restrained. What he needs is to be trained. So I'm letting him explore the table. I'm letting him see what I'm doing. I'm definitely correcting him when, you know, he needs to be corrected or when he needs to stand up. But when I approach the groom in this way, I'm setting him up for long-term success instead of just setting it up for it to be easier for me today. See how well that works? Wow, I just did everything I wanted to do and nobody was crying. Nobody cried. Now that my scissor work on the legs is completed, my last bit of scissor work on the body is I just want to blend the shorter length of the 2 into the longer length of the 0. And I'm just going to take my thinners and make sure that there's no ledge in this transition. So, tail time. I know we have this fluff up here and we are going to trim it, but we're going to set the length ourselves instead of setting the length with the clipper blade. So the first thing that I want to do, fluff this stuff up, and then I'm just going to scissor straight off the top line. I'm just going to start rounding it out past the end of the dog instead of taking it down and rounding it from the hips. I'm gonna get some assistance because he's a little wiggly for his tail and doesn't want to stand. And we're gonna do a scimitar tail. So I'm gonna hold all of the length of the hair and then the hair on the top of the tail. I'm gonna use thinners and just thin it. We want the top of the tail to be shorter than the underneath. And I'm holding the tip of his tail just to make sure that I'm not going to get too close to bones. Then I'm going to flip the tail gently, because this is an extension of their spine, and all the way up to where the tail stops curving, I'm going to trim this stuff short. I want to make sure I blend the sides. Now I have this remaining, and I'm just going to shape it into basically like a sword shape. It's kind of like a flat tail, but it's shorter. Now I'm gonna put the tail down and just check my work. Make sure that this looks blended. That we're not seeing like a gigantic boof on the top. And he does still have like kind of wispy puppy hair, but the reason that we like to do a scimitar tail on doodles is that sometimes the tails get neglected and they're not brushed very often. So this is cute still, it's stylized, but it's short and easy maintenance. Now it's time to work on the head. So my first step is I want to clear out about this much pinky's width area in between the eyes. And I'm going to use a 9 on my 5-in-1. Okay. So I usually do just a little pinky's width in between the eyes towards the top of the head, and then with the corner few teeth of my blade, I go in reverse. And because he wasn't super cooperative, he did okay. He wasn't super cooperative. I'm just gonna go over with a really fine thinning shear to make sure I didn't leave any pieces. On a modern classic head, you have two options. You can use a guard comb for the top of the head, or you can set the length with scissors. If you use a guard comb, I would do the same length as the legs or longer, so at least 2 lengths longer than the body, or you can scissor it if you choose. He seems a little bit uncomfortable with having the clippers on his head compared to shears. So I'm probably gonna trim this because his head isn't super long. I'm gonna trim it with scissors just because I'll have more control and I don't wanna make a short spot clippers. When I'm working on a puppy's head, I'm always anticipating that they're gonna move, and so I'm always ready to move my shears away. I know that they just need time and they're not used to this, so that's something that I'm keeping in mind. And I'm changing the way that I'm holding. If he doesn't like me holding the chin, I can hold like this around the jaw, or I can hold on top and bottom of the muzzle and just play around with different holding positions to see what is most comfortable for the dog that you're working on. My first reference point is the eyes. So I want in between the eyes cleared, but I also want the side of the eye cleared. And he has really cute eyelashes, so I'm gonna try to leave those. And what I'm gonna do is take my curved shears and sort of separate out the eyebrows and the eyelashes, which might feel weird for him. And then I'm gonna take my curved shears and trim that first layer just right above the eyelashes. I'm gonna trim that first layer right above the eyelashes to about 1 centimeter past the corner of the eye. My goal for trimming this is to be able to see the dog's eyeballs from the front and also from the side. So if you can see, we cannot see the dog's eyeball from this side, but we can, even with eyelashes, see it from this side. That gives me a good frame of reference when I'm setting up the lengths on my face. So you can choose to do 1/2 and 1/2 or 2/3 and 1/3. But having the eyes clear and visible is one of the first steps that you want to take when you're working on a face. My next reference point is going to be this lip line. From the corner of the nose to the corner of the nose, I want to clear out that hair. And you can do this with clippers or with shears. I'm just gonna skim. So I just want to trim this lip line so that when I look from the side, I have a reference point in the front. And now my second reference point is going to be the back of this jawline. So the back corner of the ear canal, this is the back of my jawline. This is the front of my jawline. And basically, in between these 2 points, I want a straight line that lifts in the back and in the front. I don't want a round shape like this, because then the dog's face will look droopy. The roundness of this teddy bear head is actually going to come from the back, the front, and then this 3D shape in the front. So when I'm trimming the back jawline, I would prefer to have the dog standing. And I'm going to take my thinners and just trim right up and down to set that line. Everything in front of the ear canal up to this top corner, this stuff you can clear out lightly. So now I have this line set, and you also know you've clippered all the way up to the bulb in the back of the ear. So everything that falls past this line, the jaw line, this is body hair and that should go. This is a high friction area and you want this area short. It doesn't add anything to the body or the face. After I've set my jawline, then I want to comb everything down. Everything that falls past the line that we set with our clippers earlier, that can be trimmed. And now we have our jawline. The next step would be to trim at a 45-degree angle, so not like this and not like this, and in between. We're going to trim this line in between the back of the jawline and the front. And I just want to comb. And you can start to wrap this square. This area is really short on this dog, which is why it already is looking a little bit more round. Normally you would have more of a square when you cut like this and like this, but this is the point that you can start wrapping that in to the side of the muzzle. So I'm focusing on this portion of the face. Not worried about the top of the head or the top of the muzzle yet. We're just worrying about this. As we move forward, just trim the chin. When we're trimming the sides of the face, I always want to see that 45-degree angle, and cutting at a 45-degree angle gives you lift and roundness. So I haven't even started rounding the sides yet, but we see the shape is going up like this. That's because we're cutting, the angle of our shears cuts this hair shorter and leaves this hair longer. And that way, even when the dog's haircut is grown in, it's going to grow in not long and saggy, but